Okay, I'm going to demonstrate how to replace brake pads on a vehicle. I don't know if, I'm not a mechanic, so I don't know if this is the same for every single make and model of brake pads. I've never worked with brake shoes, for instance, so if you're looking at brake shoes, it's a different story. But for brake pads, I've done this with Ford vehicles. I believe I've done this with Kia vehicles, and right now I own a Jeep, a 2006 Jeep Liberty, which is the one I'm going to replace the rear brake pads on today. And as far as my experience goes, it's all the same, right? It's a real easy process. If you go to a shop, a mechanical shop, they're going to charge you $300–400 to do this, and really it's an hour's worth of work at best, maybe. And it would cost you materials, depending on what kind of tool sets you have. It might cost you $150 in tools at most, and this is tools that you can reuse and reuse. If you have your own tools already, it's going to cost you anywhere from $25 to $60 to buy the brake pads. So here's what you need. First of all, you need a jack, right? And if you're going to be really safe about it, you use a jack stand. But I'm just going to use the jack that comes with my Jeep, right? And all vehicles come with some kind of jack. I'm going to use a crossbar. Now, you don't necessarily have to purchase one of these. Usually the jack that comes with your vehicle will come with a lug wrench that you can use for your lug nuts. I like my crossbar, so I bought one. I'm going to use one of those. You're going to need a socket set, just like a really basic socket set. It's up to 3/4 inch, 17 millimeters, and you're probably going to need one of these, right? Which is one of the most expensive items on the tool list. This is $20, and this is basically a long-armed wrench that fits different sockets. Flexible, I think it's called a flexible handle wrench or something like that. I can't remember what they call this thing, but you sometimes need one of those because sometimes the bolts on the calipers on the brakes can be sticky, and you don't have enough leverage with a little ratchet like this to get that bolt off. So you need a long arm to really torque it and pull it up. You're going to want a C-clamp, a big C-clamp, and of course you need the brake pads. And the brake pads are the things that run anywhere from $25, $60, $80. These ones that I bought were the higher end ones for my make and model, and these were $60. So I had the other tools, and so this brake pad replacement is going to cost me $60, whereas when I asked the shop about it, it was going to be $400. So let's get started. Step one is just to go ahead and loosen the lug nuts on one side, on one tire. So
just kind of loosen them.
you're loose. That's step one. Step two is to jack your tire up off the ground. Same tire that you loosened the lug nuts on, obviously. Now at this point, if you have jack stands, you might want to position them in there under the axle of the tire. I don't have jack stands. I'm just going to use the jack. Another thing you might want to do is put some blocks in front of the other tires in the direction that it might roll. This one's actually kind of rolling a little bit backwards, so but you know, with all luck, it won't come off the jack as we're working. All right, step 3 is to loosen the lug nuts the rest of the way off and take off the tire. So this should be really easy. Just undo the lug nuts, boom, put them in your pocket or somewhere where you're not going to lose them. You don't have to do it in any particular order. Take off the tire. Alright, so what we have here going into step 4 is a brake caliper, and that caliper holds the brake pads. And so what we're going to do is we're going to release this bolt right here and take that off, take the caliper off, and fit in the new brake pad. So you have to find the socket that fits that bolt. Okay, so on mine it's a 13mm nut, and I don't even need my big bar. I can actually use my standard ratchet and loosen that nut. Take that nut off, or that bolt, sorry, out of there. And this should loosen the caliper. Let me see. Well, I've got one more on the other side here. There's 2 of them on this one. So I'll loosen them both, take them off, and then should be able to take the caliper off and move on to step 5. Okay, we're ready for step 5, which is take the caliper off. Mine has this little bar across that's kind of holding the caliper in. So first of all, you need to remove that bar if you can, like this. It's just based on tension. Just take that off, and then the caliper itself should come off. If it's stuck, you can use a screwdriver or something. Just kind of give it a little pry. There we go. Really shouldn't let it swing like that if you can help it, because that puts a lot of tension on that brake line. But yeah, there's the caliper off. And so now step 6, we're going to remove the old brake pad. Alright, so just taking a good look at these, because they're a little bit different than the front brakes that I've worked with before. These have brake pads on 2 sides, whereas the front brakes usually just have them on 1. I opened up my new brake pads to compare them to what's going on here, and I see we got 2 different styles. Right? One of them has this thing on the back, and one of them has this kind of loop on the front. So that's the one that goes here, and the back one obviously goes there. So what I need to do is take the old brake pads out of there, and shouldn't be too hard. You can just pry them out. So this one here, this back one, gee, it's not coming off because the front one's kind of in the way, so I gotta get the front one off first, it looks like. And the front one comes off kind of off the side here, so I gotta pry it out of there. And so you might have to use a screwdriver or something like that to kind of pry it, to get it out. Mine has some kind of sticky goo on the old pads, kind of holding them in place. See if I'm stronger than the sticky goo. I know my my screwdriver leverage is probably stronger if I don't cut myself with the screwdriver first. There we go. Yeah, so there is one old pad, the outer one. And the other is still not coming out. Now look at this. This is going to be an important part here. You see this other one is just not quite, it's not quite enough room to remove it. So go ahead and I'm going to push it back in. And what I need to do is use my C-clamp and push this piston back into the caliper. Alright, let's hope this video doesn't turn into a Tim the Toolman kind of video, but basically what's going on here is my C-clamp is not long enough. You need a bigger C-clamp for this work. But luckily for me, I also have wood clamps because I do woodwork, or have done a lot of woodwork in the past. So I've got this big old wood clamp on here, and that's going to work just as well as the C-clamp. And basically what I want to do is just squeeze it tight against that old brake pad to push that piston back in, right? And that piston, you want it all the way back into the housing, and in the end of the whole thing, we're going to step on the brakes to get that brake fluid in there to push that piston tight again. But for right now, push that piston all the way in. That's going to allow the room to remove that other brake pad as well. So I'm almost there already. Just pushing it in with this wood clamp. You don't want to use a wood clamp if you don't have to, but it's no better or worse than a C-clamp. You just need some kind of clamp that's harder than your own pressure of your hand to push that piston in, because that piston's pretty tight. Alright, so mine is in. So now I can loosen this up, take the clamp off, and remove that last pad, right? So my pads were down to nubs. Now, at this point, of course, even before this point, you might want to check your rotors here, see if they need replacing. This one probably could use replacing, but I'm not going to replace it. If you feel a little groove here between where the brake pads have been and the rest of the rotor, probably needs replacing. But then again, I think it's going to go for another another shot. And I replaced my front rotors recently, but I think these ones I'm just going to leave. If you did need to replace the rotors, it's not a big deal. The whole assemblage here just pops off, and you can slide a new one in there. So now I'm going to put in the new brake pads. So this is what, step 6 or 7. Basically 5 was take off these old brake pads, but in order to do that, you have to push the piston in, which should be step 6 in itself. So the next step is put in your new brake pads. Start with that one, the last one you took out. Put that one in there. Just pop it back in. And then the other one, same way. Gonna have to fit it over the, pry it over the housing the same way that the other one fit in there. Just like that, new brake pads. And now the next step is to put this whole sucker back in place. So you see this edge has this little groove like that, and that edge just has a lip. with a bar, pressure bar. So you want to fit this bottom edge first in around that piece, and then press this edge in until it clicks. Whoa. All right, hold on a minute. Yeah, I was having a little issue pushing it in because you got these secondary kind of pistons here that you have to fit back behind those areas where you're gonna lock the bolt in. So fit those in first, back behind there, kind of pull it forward like this. Now set that bottom end in like I did before, and should be able to rock it into place just easy as pie like that. All right, the next step, step 8 or 9 or what have you, don't forget to put that retention bar back in the position where it was. And now we're going to fit the bolts back in to the caliper, and we're going to tighten those up. Now there's usually a certain kind of torque tension. If you happen to have a torque wrench, you can look that up if you buy one of the maintenance manuals for the vehicle. But I think, you know, having it, you know, just my general strength is probably good enough. It didn't take more than my general strength to loosen the ones that were on there before. Okay, and now we are on to step either 9 or 10, which is to put the tire back. Alright, so you pretty much do the reverse on the tire as you did the first time. You want to put the lug bolts or the lug nuts snug. You might use your cross wrench or your lug wrench and snug them up a little bit more. This time you're going to use a star pattern, right? So if I start with this nut, then I'm going to move up to this nut, make that snug, then I'm going to move up to this nut, make that snug, and just snug. Don't try to tighten it yet, because you're going to lower it down to the ground before you tighten it. And then go up to this nut, make it snug, and then this one. Alright, so next step, again going in the reverse of what we've done, is to lower the vehicle. So bring it, the jack back down, tire, and now you firm up the lugs. And if you have a torque wrench, you can torque it, you know, to precision, but you don't really need a torque wrench. Just give it a good tightening. Again, using that star pattern. And that's it. That's how to replace brake pads. I just saved myself about 300 bucks. Got to do the same thing on the other side, but it's really a piece of cake. Thought we were done, right? Me too. Now there's one last step, it's a step that's actually hard to forget. I was forgetting it in the interim, but when it comes right down to it, eventually you got to drive the vehicle. And so the very first thing you want to do is, because you pushed in that piston, that plunger, you want to step on the brake a few times, get that fluid up in there. Yeah, see, the tension's coming back now. Yeah, you got to get that tension back in there, and then take it for a little drive. Don't go right out on the highway. Take it around the neighborhood a little bit and test the brakes. My car is buzzing on me because I don't have my seatbelt on. Breaking the law. I'm a bad man.